Tamarama has been described as an oasis in the heart of Sydney's east. It's also one of the nation's founding surf clubs, dating back to the turn of the 20th century. All members are now making a record of its rich and quite colourful history.
Well, everyone in the area joined Tamarama. It was just a done thing to join the surf club.
1942, we were mate cadets, never paid any fees. Well, I lived on Mackenzie Point, and all of us would come here in the wooden shed and then we'd play up in the park or on the point.
Ivan and I joined the club when we were kids, and we used to be down the surf club all our life. That's where we swam.
Not being old enough, they used to kick us out all the time. Eventually, at 14, they allowed us to do our QC and become members.
At 14 years of age, she just looked up to the lifesavers, I think. And I remember one day I was walking around from Bondi and I found this little beach that I'd never heard of, and it was Tamarama.
Most of us didn't have cars, and transportation wasn't easy. We became very parochial and insular, if you will. And I think the surf club meant more than just being a place to regard the beach. It became a meeting place. It became very much a home from home.
What else would you do when you lived there? I've just lived up above it in Alexander Street.
I used to live on top of the place, just about. So we used to walk down through, I think they still call it the Glen, to the beach.
Being a butcher in the area, I knew so many people, and a lot of them were tangled up with the surf club. And I decided, they said, oh, why don't you go around to Brodie? Nah, I said, I like Tamarama.
The locality was better. That was a much better beach. Topless.
A paying pool in the local pool room one night, and the cops raided the joint, and we just missed getting lumbered. And I said, got to be something better than this. Get into the cab, and the cabbie says to us, where are you going? We're going to John Bondi Surf Club. What are you going there for? I'll take you to a Butte Club. Because we lived at Punchbowl and it was so far away, first thing the bloke said, sleep in the clubhouse, don't go home. That's basically how I joined the club.
Before the war, Tamarama used to be a Luna Park. All sorts of flying foxes and wheels and things. The whole thing was a park beach, and then that went to White City, and then from White City to Luna Park. No, Tamarama was pretty dead through the war, for sure.
The whole area, everything was, they blew the stairs up, everything was barbed wire, everything.
Along the back of the beach there, where the concrete is now, that was all anti-tank wooden structures filled with concrete, barbed wire along the top.
They were expecting an invasion, really.
Military personnel all around the place. They were stationed at every point.
Yeah, that probably had our own clippers. We clipped through the barbed wire to get on the beach. And then the army made an agreement. They wouldn't redo it. Because we just go snip, 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 snip.
The days of the surf club were a timber shed.
Oh, yeah, you've probably heard the story about in 1938, I've been told by old members like John Woodall, at a wooden structure, and someone set fire to it. They rang the fire brigade, and the fire brigade come. The next time they set fire, they told the fire brigade, don't come this next time. That's how they got the new clubhouse in 38, I've heard.
No, we didn't set fire to it. The cracker did. I don't know, it'd come from somewhere.
And eventually the boys came back from the war, and we were the only three there, right? Ivan and I and Ross. And eventually they started to tear the place down. We've got the building now that we have, which is a big improvement.
When I joined the club, it was only half as long as it is now, the ground floor, and they built out the back. They had a handball court out the back. I remember we built the handball court, wheelbarrows are full of wet cement down that pathway. A couple got tipped over, it was a bit of a drama. Then they extended the club out and done away with the handball court.
It hasn't changed much. It looks the same, it's just a bit brighter.
There was no change rooms on the beach then, you know, where they are now. There was nothing.
Outdoor showers and all those things. Never no hot water, but that was something you never heard of, hot water.
Always a problem keeping the paintwork staying on Tamarama. It's almost underwater sometimes, that club.
One year we had the most rescues in Australia.
It took me a year, I'd say, to read the current properly, to look at the beach and say where the current is. It's like a running river, and you can actually see it from up at the club. The water comes in over the bar, and that moves every week. It's different. And sometimes it comes in, the waves come in the middle and go out both sides, and sometimes it comes in one side and out the other side. So every week you've got to look at it and see where the current is and which way the rip goes. But it's easy to read now. I can go out and tell you exactly where to swim and what to do.
Some of the regular beach inspectors, they're the council blokes, when they came to Tamarama, the first thing they did was close the beach because they didn't, you know, the crossed flags then, they didn't envy it. It was, you know, they're more used to Bondi, which is not nearly as hard, not nearly as difficult.
Oh, it's the nature of the beach because it's narrow and it's got the rocks and it's got the famous twins, as we call them.
The main problem was going out towards Bronte, the Bronte Express. Yeah, past the twins.
So you've got the people on deck up on the clubhouse on the cliff top, and they can see things a lot better than what we could down on the patrol area. And so they could whistle us and get us going, and then they could get in touch with the ambulance if it was necessary.
The main issue with our beach was that rip. But if you caught them quick, they never went round there. But if you got out there and there was a big sea or something like that, well, it was, and the belt was no good, if you were getting washed to the rocks, you're better off pulling the pin and just come in at Bronte.
Only have it the two of us, in any case. It's only Ivan and I to go and do it.
There was no one here to train us. No one. They all went to the war and we did rescues. No hats, no brothers, just jump off the rocks and put them in.
But generally speaking, you were able to guide people to the reef and other places where they could walk out.
Check his mouth that was cleared, lay him flat on the stomach and put your hands halfway up the back of the ribs and pumped at a rate that I can't remember what it was now, but it was, you know, a designated rate of pumping, and that was supposed to exclude make him perk up the water and guff that he might have swallowed.
I remember one time there, it was through the week, I went down the beach and there was someone in trouble and there was a couple of people on the beach and I just had a quick chat to a bloke and I said, look, I said to a kid, the beach inspector's up the back of the beach, you go and get him. If you'll just feed the line out, I'll swim out and grab this bloke. And by that time, the beach inspector would be there showing them what to do, which as well as it worked out.
You know, none of them really stick out in my memory, except, you know, quite often you'd rescue a damsel in distress who sort of couldn't afford a bikini top, and that was always fun.
One of the rescues that we did, I was in the boat. Blue became involved as the sweep. Suddenly I heard him yell out and he just left the boat, dived overboard and came up with a bloodied body in his hands.
The old boats used to have a copper or brass underneath of the keel, and this fellow was fractionally outside the flags when the boat came in and just cleaved him right down the middle. And I was beach inspector that day, and we had to hold him down up in the clubhouse, and there was one on each arm, one on each leg holding him, and I had his head holding it together until the ambulance got there.
The plane crash occurred off the point here between Macca's and Tama.
Plane came down the glen and did a loop-the-loop.
There was Leah Eisen, his girlfriend down on Bronte Beach. He comes around, he does a loop, gets going up, and he turns over and just flutters down, crash.
Half a mile or so. I think he was doing loops and things, and the last one picked him up.
There were 2 or 3 of them that swam out to try and rescue the pilot, but he was dead on impact. The impact killed him.
A lot of them saw the plane go down, and we ended up having people all over the place.
But the people stupidly just ran into the water looking for souvenirs, I suppose.
So some genius decided, correctly, let's ring the shark bell. Well, that created the most incredible visual effect that you'd ever want to see. 100 people, more than 100 people, all of them at a rate of knots, in panic mode, trying to get back to the beach. Suddenly buses hit and they couldn't make it. So what they did do, the likes of Ivan Butterworth, Koki Carl, George Bishop, Doug McDonald, all of them blokes on their surfboards with reels attached to the boards out there and bringing them in at probably 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people at the one time. The club was awarded for bravery for what the guys did that day. They did an incredible job, and we didn't lose any lives at all. And it could have been quite an absolute disaster, I'll tell you. I mean, you didn't have police boats and motorboats and all that sort of things in those days. I mean, it was pure and simply hands on deck.
See, it's funny, you know, like once it's all over, there's sort of a let-down period, you know, where there's a little bit of let-down. You know, you think, oh, I wonder if I could have done, you know, a bit more, or, you know, whether I could have attacked this a bit differently.
It's in your blood. You still do it now. You walk down the beach and you're looking for, if anyone's in trouble, you can't help yourself.
No lives lost during patrol hours in 106 years.
Yes, great, wasn't it? Exhilarating. Yeah, it is. It's exhilarating, yeah.
That means we did our work. That's why they were there to save lives. And we did a lot of rescues over the years, as you can imagine, 106 years.
I've always mentioned it every time I can to anybody, to no lives lost on Tamarama Beach.
No lives lost, which means that the patrols are doing their job.
Gives you a good feeling to be able to say that.
You know, when you consider the amount of rescues that have been carried out down there.
That's what the main objective of a surf club is, and I think at a beach like Tamarama it's quite a distinctive record to have, you know, being such a dangerous beach for swimmers.
It's remarkable. It goes to the quality of the club and the quality of the people. Now, I think in those days we had 8 patrols, so we used to have perhaps 10 people in each patrol. The numbers you have there now are extraordinary to us. We didn't have that latitude that you've got now with so many people comparatively.
In 1950s, we didn't do Saturday morning patrols at Tamarama. We only did after lunch. The council had a permanent, professional beach inspector there for the morning.
Butchers work Saturday morning in those days. You'd finish work and the next minute you go race straight down to the surf club, you know.
We had a beach inspector. Each patrol had one.
It was a fairly prestigious role because there were only 6 beach inspectors in the club, all members of the club, and you had a uniform quite distinct. You wore your Speedo, you wore a pair of white shorts, a Panama hat, and you thought you were terribly important because you set flags and you sort of paraded around. The patrol captain looked after all the necessities for the patrol, but the beach inspector was sort of over and above the patrol captain.
He was still stuck upstairs, he still had to lug the rotten stuff downstairs. We just had a patrol, no covers of course, no gear. He didn't wear anything on top anyway, just around the pair of shorts. We didn't have the cap,
A beach inspector, a captain, a vice captain, and whoever turned up for patrol.
The beach inspector of the day was usually, also on the weekends, always a member of the club. He was sort of next level up from patrol captain. He set the flags, and he was sort of responsible for the proper dress of the people on the beach and that type of thing.
We didn't have much. All we had was a costume and a towel.
There was no cover, no umbrella or anything like that. Because in those days, everybody wanted a tan. It didn't matter how sunburnt you got it.
We were on duty once every 3 weeks.
You stand there and blow your whistle and push, get over there, and that's it. If you control the crowd, you had very little trouble.
On a busy Sunday, there's never less than probably 30 or 40 rescues in an afternoon, and there weren't that many capable swimmers in the club. So, those of us who could swim were the ones who were sort of lent on to do most of the rescues, because we didn't have a rubber ducky in those days. We did basically board rescues and line and belt rescues. So that was the mode of rescue. And we had a reel on the northern point of the club, so when it was big, you'd use that one, and that way they could pull you straight back towards the northern end of the beach, so you wouldn't get dragged around to Bronte.
We used to use the Holger-Nielsen method. That was the method of resuscitation, where you knelt in front of the. I think it replaced the Schaefer method, which is where you sat beside the patient and pressed on his back and the movements, and then the Holger-Nielsen was the next one. I think maybe I got it wrong way around. No, I'm pretty right. And you would sit with your knees at the patient's head, and you would be over the top of him and raise his elbows in a movement, a timing movement, and so they were the methods of resuscitation in those days.
And the Eve rocker is another peculiar device that some man with a peculiar sense of humour invented.
I don't know, it was very effectual, but you would strap the patient on the Eve rocker, and then you would raise it up and give him a shake.
The reel and the belt should never ever taken it away. It's the most efficient life-saving apparatus in the world. The reel was the safest. You could put, no matter what, today on the board, a big wave comes and they disappear. I did 10 in one day. They do that now in a week.
In my view, I still think a line and belt is a good way to go to rescue someone on a beach like Tamarama.
Well, the original ones were cork. Then we got rid of them and this became the belt.
It probably wasn't as quick as paddling out on a surfboard and things like that. You still had to swim out.
Sometimes they'd swim out and just hold somebody up until the beltman got there, because it was hard work pulling that belt.
We used to wax the line to try and make it float. Just have to pull the line off and dry it out properly, and then slowly reel it on, and with the grease going on it.
I wasn't the best belt swimmer in the world. You get out there, mate, and you're there and you've pulled this belt out, and I thought to myself, gee whiz, I might be in a bit of trouble here.
There were 1 or 2 cases of the beltman drowning in situations where his belt got tangled up in weed and dragged down.
I was the boat captain for a number of years down there. It's an old, like a ship's rescue boat, double end, and very heavy, very high. Made in strips and overlapped all the way down. It's to give it strength. It's got full of ribs. It ribs every 6 inches in the boat or 4 inches in the boat, and felt very strong because they had to be to take a pounding.
It took the entire surf club, probably 10 to 15 members, to carry the damn thing, the old double ender, oars as thick as your arm and so forth, none of this sliding seats and the oars they've got these days.
To get them up out of the water, you had to have rollers.
The boats, the tucks were just coming in, touchstone. Instead of being pointy ended at both ends, one was cut off. And in those days, they carried a knife and a belt in the boat. A knife to kill the sharks. Or cut the boat, cut the line.
We used to row from Tamarama to Manly for a training rower. That was our training row, usually on Sunday afternoon. We'd take off and row all the way to Manly, go into the Manly pub and have a quick beer and turn around and come back home again.
In those days, we used to row in footy shorts and ladies' scanties. Because we slid, that we rowed like a scull, it used to wear your behind out and tear the skin off in large lumps, and I mean very large lumps. So the thing to make you slide a bit better was the scanties, and it used to give you protection from the seam in the football shorts, which used to get in the crack in the bottom and do all sorts of damage. And you'd come back from a training row, and it was a routine. You'd drop your dacks, you'd get the metho, and you'd throw it on quick and you'd fan it with a paper so it didn't sting too much. And if they missed and happened to hit the vitals, well, after you'd bounced off the ceiling, but that was a ritual. Somehow or other, I got picked from that to go to row bow, the suicide seat, as we used to call it. We had 2 boats in those days. We had an old town double-ender, and then we had a carvel plank. Anything that happened to them, repairs or anything, that had to be fixed and paid for by the club, which never had any money.
I was in the Wales helicopter for 2 years. 2 of us joined it, only 2. It was about 1976. We were inaugural members, Lex and I. But it has changed, and now you've got to be almost a paramedic now to be in it.
We used surfboards a lot to rescue people in those days because we could handle the things. And
the old surfboards, the Malibu boards didn't come in till about probably 1957 or 58. Around that era, I distinctly remember the first ones being seen at the surf carnival. And the old boards were built like a racing ski today. They were about 15 foot long. They were hollow and narrow, and particularly cumbersome. You know, they were useless things in the surf, really. They were just like a racing craft.
Everyone used to ride a Narm, and they had, in fact, we did a lot of rescues on Narms, and they had 6 handles, 2 on the side and 2 on the front.
You just hop on it, paddle out, and you could hold someone up while the boat was swimming out.
Early days here, we never had the benefit of jet boats. That came in later, I saw that come in. Saw the rubber duckies come in, and saw the club boards come in, the rescue boards come in, which have all been such a great advantage to life-saving. In lots of cases, they were very reluctant to introduce a lot of them, and I think that was to their detriment.
There were always the big carnivals. There was something that was a big event and it was always reported in the paper, so that was an attraction to the surf club, to those who could compete.
Sunday morning, there was always a swimming race. Sunday afternoon, we always had beach events. And Sunday morning, we also had board and ski races. So that happened every Sunday without fail.
We had branch competition, and then we had what they called inter-cities in those days. You'd have Sydney branch versus the Northern Beaches branch.
It was fun going to the different beaches and the different areas, like going over to Palm Beach or down to Narrabeen and over to Manly and Freshwater. They were great carnivals, besides our own carnivals over this side, the Sydney side.
The first surf carnival of the year was at Gary Beach. And we used to all, with our girlfriends, my dear wife used to be one of them, we'd get on the back of an open truck, mind you, a tabletop truck, and it had about a foot rail around it. We'd hitch the boat onto the back, all pile in, a couple of reels in the tabletop truck, and off we'd go to Gary. These days you'd have been arrested.
Very enthusiastic squad, but pretty hopeless in most directions of life-saving.
We never won a great deal, but competing, making up the numbers was important, yeah.
But I just loved competing, and I wasn't overly concerned with winning. It was great to win, but I never got upset if I got beaten. If I performed to my best, that was good enough for me. But it had to be my best.
I won a musical flag against 2 blokes one day because they put the 2 flags together and I dived and got the 2. And they wanted to rerun the race. I said, no, it's the only time we're ever going to win this.
I won a couple of National Open belt titles, and they were very very fond memories. Well, I went to the Olympics in 1980. I think it prepared me pretty well for competition in the pool.
They're the giants of surf life saving. Some of these guys, 6'6". Previous to the Open Belt, I spoke with Graham Brewer.
I think it's going to be a very tough race, the final, because, you know, as you've seen all day today, it's been very close. Even in the heats and the semi-finals, it's been tough to make it through the rounds.
They bagged me because I won the surf race, but I won it on a wave, and I got a beautiful wave from the middle of the pack somewhere. I can't remember, but I, of course, caught the shoulder of the wave and got a lovely corner all the way to the beach. And they said, "Look, this isn't a surfing competition. This is a race. You're not supposed to catch the corner." But couldn't resist it. Tamarama through and through. I love the left-handers.
The water was cold, and there was a lot of sharks around in the old days. We'd have a surf race, you'd swim past sharks going out there, wobbegongs and grey nurses, and there'd be schools of salmon, real thick schools of salmon, right across the bay out. Before you'd get to the buoy to swim around it, you'd go through the school of fish, and the sharks are swimming around them all the time. It was very frightening, because I wasn't a good swimmer, and I was always sent off and go, and I was first out there. To swim with my head down, watching to see what was under me.
I was beach friend champion from the time I was a cadet right until 21, 22, so for about 7 or 8 years. I was sort of on my own for a long time. When Johnny Annan came to the club, he won a national title in 56, I think, or 57. And of course, that was the beginning of a really golden era for beach sprinting.
Being blatantly honest, right, I'm a rower. Rowing was, Tamarama and rowing, that was me. You know, Tamarama was about boats and was about competition. Saving lives was the job. You did it because that's what you had to do. And you always do your job no matter what it is, right? But the benefit and the reward was the rowing and the competitions. I wouldn't know how many races we won, because we won a lot of races. I know that, but I can't remember how many.
Ivan's wife is on the front of the 1946-47 annual report, in which we had a carnival down here which was hosted by radio personalities, no TV, radio. And we had this carnival, surf carnival here, in which the Tamarama A team and the B team, the girls were the B team, the A team were the Tivoli girls.
You probably don't even remember the Tivoli, but the Tivoli was sort of cabaret, or no, cabaret was a show place where they had dancing girls and that type of thing.
So the Tama for Glamour related to the girls who were the girlfriends of the members of this club. The guys thought that their girls were pretty glamorous, so it sort of slotted in pretty easy, Tama for Glamour.
Because in those days, March Past and R&R was a big feature of surf carnivals.
It's quite a good spectacle when you'd see, especially at a national title, where you'd see a big contingent of 50 or 60 clubs all marching around with the bagpipes playing.
It was a white one-piece swimming costume with the 2 blue Tamarama stripes on it. They made it like some velour stuff, you know.
You had to march on with precision, and if anybody was out of step or if their arm movements were identical, whatever, the precision was the thing, and you were allocated points for everything that the judge could see that wasn't right, and the lower score was the eventual winner.
Well, the man in the front is often a tall man. He'd carry the flag, and I was on the reel, one of the men carrying the reel.
It wasn't a big deal, marching. You've got to remember, this was 1948. It was 3 years after the end of the World War too. And everybody was used to marching or drilling or seeing marching or drilling. It was just a part of your life at that time.
Everybody had the same costume, and all the clubs wore navy costumes at that time. The March Past had the colourful club colours, but the R&R teams had plain navy speedos. It was a bit like show ponies, I suppose.
Yes, when the Queen was here, yeah, that was excellent, excellent. At the time, you were battling to get people to go, and then when they found out that you're going to be there and the Queen was going to be there, behind the main party or the next team on, believe it or not. Yeah, well, yeah, very proud.
When we went to Melbourne in 56, which was for the Olympics. SLSA decided they wanted to show the world what surf lifesaving was like. We had blue suede shoes, grey flannel trousers, navy blue jacket, and we had hand-embroidered little gold bullion emblems of Tamarama on the pockets. And while we were in Melbourne walking around, people are asking us for our autographs, which we thought was pretty cool.
Carl Boyd managed to con the proprietor of the Bondi Hotel to giving us tracksuits, and that was first ever to have a club with tracksuits. And
we had an interesting drive going down. We had breakdowns and all that sort of stuff. And Teddy Butler, as I say, we had no money, but his parents owned a fish shop, and they gave us a lend of their fish truck. And Teddy drove us, and we towed the boat, and we slept under the boat overnight on the way down, like you towed the boat with you.
And we worked out we drank more beer than we put petrol in the car on going down to Melbourne. So it was very much a family beach in those days. As I said, transport was very difficult. I mean, there was very little parking. There weren't a lot of cars even in 45, 46. So people came by tram from down Fletcher Street and walked down. Eventually there was a bus that came from Town Hall, the Tamarama bus. But mainly they were local people.
Mostly it was families who came down, and their kids would progress through the nippers, and then you'd hopefully maintain them because the family was interested in teaching them surf skills and keeping them safe in the water. So, you know, I saw a lot of families, progress their children through the club, and a lot of memberships in my years there were people who'd come from out of the district. They'd come from the north side of the harbour or even the western suburbs to Tamarama because it's such a beautiful beach to be at.
A lot of guys from Newtown out that way, there were fellas that... it's always been a club that's attracted fellas from the west, inner west.
We actually initiated the nippers movement at Tamarama too.
The nipper movement, because we started that around about 65, 66. Well, we tried to give them surf awareness. That was the main thing.
Musical flags, the beach events were really popular, especially the young ones, because a lot of the young kids, some of them didn't even swim, But the idea was to get them in the water, and quite often at Tamarama being so rough, we couldn't use the surf if it was dangerous at all. But it was, the accent was very much on water safety for the young ones. And then we had a lot of inter-club competition between Bronte and the other clubs as well.
Look, we never had a big club at Tamarama. There might have been 20 or 30 in the nippers, mostly close friends, and so I think 13s was the oldest age group in those days.
We had girls from day one in nippers. It was a bit controversial then, but we had as many daughters as sons, and there was no reason, and it wasn't affiliated with the association at that time. That the nippers were independently run from each club, so we had no reason not to have the girls in there, and it raised a few eyebrows. I remember that, but. When we went to the other clubs, the girls had to compete against the boys, that was the way it was. And it was the same with our club, the girls competed against the boys, we didn't segregate.
Yeah, always contentious with people letting women into the last bastion for male socialising, and it was always seen, in the old days, it was nude handball was the thing, I can remember at Clovelly and at the Bondi, it was always, and at Tamarama, you'd play handball and, half the players wouldn't have any clothes on, and I don't know whether it was normal or abnormal or whether I should be even saying what was happening, but that was the code of behaviour in surf clubs. So it was not seen as a place that women would be welcome.
Nobody wore clothes. It was, an all-male club, and you just, for some reason, they just didn't have their clothes on.
And also from a social point of view, it was a place where men let their hair down and swore and spat and farted, and really it wasn't an appropriate place for the women. The women would remain outside. And
you always had your women associated with fundraising and providing food and things at times, They were a necessary part of the organisation, but not recognised. The women were behind the scenes, and even in the early days, They had a lot to do with the club.
Very chauvinistic organisation back then, and in fact, when the issue came up of the Sydney branch talking about women joining the clubs as active members, I was very supportive of the idea, but some on the management committee were opposed to it. They used the excuse that we didn't have the facilities, but I think really they just didn't like the idea of women. But now it's been proven that they can do the job just as well as any male.
But, I guess those barriers were broken down relatively quickly, through the 80s, and then they become an important part of the club.
See, fundraising in those days, in the early days, we did some quite strange fundraising feats.
A lot of people lost interest in surf clubs. They weren't seen to be a great place to belong to. I think that was mainly the fact that people had duties, things that they were supposed to do when you could go down and have a swim and get out on a surfboard and enjoy yourself without any of the duties being thrown in.
Well, there are always financial pressures, and there are always pressures on trying to attract new memberships, and I think they were the main issues, and trying to get an appropriate number of volunteers on the beach every patrol.
Yes, there was a canteen that the club ran. That was up the back of the beach, and we used to run that all the time, Saturdays and Sundays, and then school holidays. We used to get the people from the club to run it.
When they ran the kiosk, they used to say it was no pies lost.
They had a couple of gambling nights. Quite a few of the members were, I suppose, operating some illegal or close to illegal premises throughout Sydney, and they donate their services on a Saturday night. We'd have a good fundraiser from a gambling night. We did that quite a few times with success, to try and purchase a new boat or a new belt and line. My mother always said it's a surf club. You'll meet a lot of good people down there because they're volunteers and they're the rock of society. And I think that's something that I will take to the grave probably. Just the dedication and commitment to something that's a good cause.
More than just rescuing lives, you met a lot of new friends through the surf club.
But even in the winter months, we had a men's basketball team, Tamarama Tigers.
And we entered ourselves in a competition out, the Eastern Suburbs competition. They were all members of the club, and we used to train on Sundays, and we had a reasonably proficient A-grade basketball team.
Basketball in those years was just in its infancy, and but it took off. All the surf clubs put teams in, and we used to play over at Maroubra.
The billiard table, the table tennis table.
There was a surf club shuttlecock competition.
Oh, last week played squash.
And Blue was playing ice hockey, so I learnt to play ice hockey. And we got about 5 or 6 other fellas in from the club, so there were 6 of us all joined East Monarchs ice hockey team.
Yeah, but once I got into the boat crew, the boat crew was you. That was your family. We did everything together then.
The social aspect of the club in those days was very, very strong.
Quite good that way because it did change your life.
Mainly when we got girls, that's when it all, still the socialised things. Prior to that, it was just boys playing table tennis.
We used to have a cabaret at the surf club about once a month. Cabaret's probably not the right word, but it was the word we all used. It was the surf club cabaret, and all the surf clubs had them.
We'd have one, North Bondi would have one, and Bronte would have one.
It's just a band and a dance and a drink and food. Very, very important socially for the members. It was for me and my friends, We would look forward to that, especially the New Year's Eve cabaret. That was a big one. That was always a dress-up, usually a Hawaiian night or something like that nature, so the girls could show off. And it was a terrific night. Usually got a band from somewhere or other, and it was a great night.
I look at it now and I think, how the hell did we ever dance in here? But we would come in after the patrol on a Saturday and put borax on the floor to begin with, powder, and then we'd get a sugar bag and fill it up with wood shavings, get it from the butchers off the floor, you know, and then pour kerosene on it. And then we get one of the small kids to sit on it and we'd drag it around the club, putting all the powder into the ground and so on. It made a lovely surface for dancing.
And the Sunday afternoons were absolutely brilliant. People came from everywhere. And it was primarily attracted to the social underneath on Sunday afternoons. And it was a riot every week. The laugh, it was terrific.
I'd come in and we'd have paper cups and we'd all have a few beers and stagger off home. Some of us used to walk home and some used to stagger. I once saw someone being wheeled up the path up there in a wheelbarrow.
The social events, yeah, very social. Very social. No, they were good. It was a good little club. Yeah, it used to be swinging there sometimes. Yeah, it was good.
Once the word got out there was a cabaret Tamarama, you know, the place was packed.
Oh, I'd have to be very careful here.
Oh, now you're getting on to me.
Yes, we had some interesting visitors who come down and perform interesting acts. But pretty lewd, a lot of it, I'd have to be quite honest.
Yeah, we had lay girls there once. Yeah, now that was funny. We had a bloke at our club who knew Carlotta, and so we were organising a cabaret, and he said, well, I might be able to help you out with a bit of entertainment. So, what do we get? Lay girls, the whole bit, the whole kit and caboodle, full gear, all the regalia, everything. And what a great night. The only thing is, as the boys were having a drink, they were forgetting who they actually were. So there was a lot of canoodling going on. They were like, it's a bloke. Oh, who cares?
We had some of the best jazz musicians in Australia. It used to come, Don Burrows and all these people used to come down and play. And Jack Allen, marvellous jazz musician. And they'd play all night for us, for nothing. Just because they liked the acoustics. And all these people had come down after their gigs all over to Sydney. We'd be there at 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning playing. It was just terrific.
The Cockroaches play there quite a lot.
And we all usually ended up in the surf at midnight. Some of us with clothes on and some of us without clothes.
Kicked out for a while because I was playing cards. We were playing for money.
At the Moscow Circus there one day, that was another, we talk about rescues. We were on patrol one day and one Sunday, and we're trying, these people were jumping in the water and they couldn't swim properly, and we're trying to pull them in, but they couldn't understand English, so we eventually found an interpreter and got them in. It was the Moscow Circus. And they were staying around at Tamarama House, there in the corner from the surf club. And anyway, we invited them in for a beer on Sunday afternoon keg. And so they all come round with their dried fish and stuff like that. And we had an afternoon of acts and feats of strength and card tricks, and it was really, yeah, it was good.
But we always had a march past at the end of the, you know, and everyone had plenty of grog, and we put the costumes on upside down and back at the front and march around the beach and bump into each other. It was something like out of the Marx Brothers, you know.
Back then, I suppose, a lot of people met a lot of people and lots of things happened outside of the club in the dark, who knows.
Everything that went on in the club in those days was harmless. There were never any fights, or there were never police turning up, and there was never any loud noise. And
even during the week, I think the aspect of the club too was good because you got that late afternoon sun, and you didn't just go down to Tamarama when you were on patrol. You went to Tamarama every weekend, and quite often you'd go there every day if it was good weather. You know, there'd be a crowd of people there every day after work. That's just where you went.
Generally speaking, it made a different life altogether. And it was a good life.
As you get older, you don't make many new friends, not close friends. they're blokes that I've shared a lot of experiences with in life, a lot of laughs and a lot of nonsense one way and another. You make friends, but there's not the same closeness to them as you're older. And the bastards all keep dying too. They're absolutely inconsiderate, some of them.
Well, it's like my second home, I suppose. When I was growing up, if I wasn't at home, I was at the surf club.
No, they came down every day, but it's like a second home.
I spent most of my time down there anyway.
And on a Sunday, if it was pouring with rain and a howling gale and a massive surf, then we'd be at the surf club. We'd be watching the golf, or we'd be having a surf, or that's where we hung out. That was our playground, if you like.
We used to come down here all the weekend and lots of times.
My family questioned the amount of time I spent down there.
What does it mean to me?
It's I don't know. It's hard to define. I get lost for words when I try and get to define certain things.
I'm a very proud member of Tamarama.
I think it's given me more than I've given it.
Moulding you, not trying doing it deliberately, just because that was the environment you were in.
No, I don't realise that we're humble. And, you just did what you had to do in those days.
The discipline was very good.
I don't know where I'd be if it wasn't for the surf club. Probably laying in the gutter or something.
If it hadn't been for Tamarama, who knows what I might have done.
In the Depression and all that, we were lucky. We had the people out west had nothing, and we had the water.
I wasn't frightened to say anything to anyone. I conducted myself as a gentleman all the time.
I changed my life. That's all I can say. Had I not come to Tamarama, I suppose I'd have finished up like the rest of the drunks and no apers from where I come from. And a lot of them finished up crims and what have you. So, had a big influence on my life because you met a different type of person, but also it gave you a different sense of values.
It was good camaraderie, and you were doing something really deep down. It wasn't the reason I joined it, but in the end you were. You were doing something that's worthwhile.
You were part of it. You didn't have to be the top person. You were part of it, and I think it's important.
Being a volunteer organisation, surf clubs gather a certain type of people, and I find they're the people I want to mix with.
Tamarama to me is just the pinnacle of surf clubs.
Well, it's my whole life.
It was a great life. I've got good mates. It was terrific. It's the greatest movement I think we could have in this country.
That's what it's all about. It's just about saving lives at the end of the day. If they get pleasure out of it, well, that's just a bonus.
It's a wonderful organisation to belong to. Recommend it to anyone. Best thing I ever did.
Come and join us. I've enjoyed it.
The amount that you put into the club is the amount of joy that you'll get out of it. And the more you do, the more you relate to people, the happier you'll be.
Development for my life, really. I think I learned a tremendous amount from the club. Apart from mateship, there was altruism. There was the ability to serve on a committee.
It's just a way of life, that's all.
Best days of my life.
Ivan Butterworth.
Alex Carl.
My name is Henry Kevin Hurahan.
My name is Bob Hodgson, Hodgson.
I'm Brian Henry.
My name's Cedric Davis.
My name is Clive Owens.
John Hall.
My name is John Proctor.
My name is John Shand.
Kenneth William Eastman.
Ken Stewart.
My name is Maxwell John Martin.
Neil Smith.
Neville Richard Gray.
Robert Marrett, they call me Bob.
My name is Ronald Sidney Muller.
My name's Ron Norman.
My name is Ted Gilroy.
Gordon Keach, known as Don Keach.
My name is Douglas MacDonald.
My name is Frank Smith.
My name is Jeffrey Mould.
My name is John Bell.
My name's Brian Beer.
My name's Graham Brewer.